Hey Krishnendu, welcome to the crypto world. So today, Krishnendu, please introduce yourself.
Hi everyone, I'm Krishnendu Chatterjee. I'm based in Taipei, Taiwan. Uh, I have been in the crypto space for the past 5 years in various roles. So basically, I started investing in Bitcoin in 2016 while I was still pursuing my PhD. I finished my PhD in 2017, and then I joined a company called DTCO in Taiwan, which was in the health tech and blockchain startup. So I was the product manager and business development manager for this product, and we implemented it in hospital. So basically, it's implementation of blockchain in hospital. So I have hands-on experience in this. And after that, I was joining a company called uh, Infinity Blockchain Labs. So they just opened in Taiwan in 2018, around that time, and then I joined them in 2019, and I was them working with them till last year till October as a blockchain consultant. And mostly they were implementing blockchain in supply chain traceability and product origin. Right now I am working with XREX, which is a crypto exchange, and we are trying to bring crypto to the common people by decreasing the level of difficulty by various things like education and videos and uh, peer-to-peer transfer of ideas and thoughts and knowledge. And then we are also taking care of the KYC AML part, which I feel is very important for this space to grow. That's my background, mostly in business development and in blockchain consultant. So I have been in this space, and you can say I've been there and done that.
Yeah. DeFi is the main thing that will grow in future. I think so because the first point that came in Bitcoin was also related to finance, and most people and the youngsters or the beginners don't understand DeFi. So can you please just elaborate on the term DeFi?
Sure. So DeFi is basically decentralized finance. And I totally agree with you that DeFi is something which is going to grow rapidly. Currently, DeFi has a market cap around $40 billion, which I think will at least be 5 times more. So in the next 3 to 5 years, so it will cross 200 billion US dollars in the next 3 to 5 years. So what is DeFi? In simple terms, you deposit your money in a bank, and the bank uses your money to give loans to other people who needs the money. So they charge a higher percentage, and for you they give you a certain percentage back because you deposited the money. So this is how a centralized financial system works. DeFi is very similar to this, but herein there is no centralized authority who will check that you will get the DeFi project. You will invest in the DeFi project, and then there's no centralized body or centralized person who will check that you have paid back or not, or what is the terms, etc. So everything is done on a smart contract. So you have a smart contract, and suppose you have Bitcoin, and right now the Bitcoin price is say 35,000 US dollars, and you don't want to sell it, but you want to say get 10,000 US dollars against your one Bitcoin. So you can put your Bitcoin, and you can get a certain percentage of that amount as loan in stable coin. So stable coin is something which is backed by say US dollars. So one USDT, which is a stable coin, is backed by $1 US, for example.
Alright.
So you get back 10,000 US dollars, and then you use the money for say your personal things or for trading, and then whenever you return it back with a certain percentage as interest. So you can then get back the Bitcoin back. Similarly, if you just don't want to sell it, or if you don't want to get a loan, you can just give your Bitcoin to a third party holder, and they can then loan it for others who wants to do trading or margin trading or spot trading or whatever. So basically this is another way of earning passive income. So there are various projects which are trying to do it, Uh, some are centralized, some are decentralized, and I feel that there's a lot of scope in this space to grow, mainly because right now most of the money that is coming in the DeFi space from retail investors is basically from people like me and you who wants to deposit their crypto and get some money back. But there's a huge potential of this space being very attractive to institutional investors and hedge funds and big investors like who have the deep pockets. We call them whales in the crypto market. But for this to happen, the DeFi space will have to be a bit more creative, and they have to have some kind of ID verification, KYC done, so that they know whose people, whose money they are bringing in the system. So this is how I feel the system will evolve. So basically right now there are two ways crypto is going. One is centralized way, where you have centralized exchanges like Binance, WazirX, CoinDCX, XRX. And then there's a DeFi way where there's no centralized authority, but everything is governed by the smart contract. So these are the two ways crypto is moving right now. And even in the DeFi space, I feel in the coming 1 year, at least, I would say that some projects will come out which will have a way wherein institutions can invest after doing proper KYC AML. So this is my take on the DeFi. Hope you have a bit of knowledge what is DeFi.
Yeah, actually, yes, you explained very nicely. And actually, I also think that this is the right time, and many projects are working on that, like solving the scalability issue and sustainability issue. And I think many projects are coming up now and now then. But actually, I also feel that there are a lot of coins in the market, and if someone wants to invest in those types of coins at the time of ICO, so there's a lot more to understand the topic about ICO, that which type of ICO you should go with or you should invest or not. And you already know a lot of ICO, so how do you look at ICO as a potential investment? And please give a brief about what is ICO mainly to the new beginners.
Okay, so ICO stands for Initial Coin Offering. What does this basically mean? So suppose a company wants to raise funds. So basically, before crypto, they had to raise funds by diluting equity and getting debt. So these are the only two ways where they can raise funds. So how does that work? So you go to an investor and say, hey, I have like 100 shares. I want to give you 10 shares for say $10,000. And then you go to the next round and say, hey, I have done this much. I have this many people using my platform. I have this much revenue. So I want to sell the next 10 shares for say $100,000. So in this way, you raise various funds, various rounds, which is called Series A, Series B, Pre-Seed, Seed. So this is commonly what you hear from people that, Cred raised this much amount of money or Ola raised this much amount of money. So this is how they raise funds to grow a company. So once the company is grown and they have enough revenue and it's a sustaining business, they go and list on the market so that common people like you and me can invest in the shares and get profit. So that's how share market works. Similarly, after the cryptocurrency craze came in, people started telling that, okay, fine, now I don't have to do this. I can just go directly to the people who can invest in the project like from day one. So that's how ICOs work. So maybe there is a seed round, but generally people like common people, retailers, they get to invest in ICOs very early. So the risk reward ratio is very high. So if you invest in 10 ICOs, probably one of them is going to be a huge success. For example, most of you have heard of Matic Network or Polygon.
Yeah.
So around a year back, Polygon was worth roughly like 14 million US dollars. Now it's worth like 14 billion US dollars. So that's how much the ICO project has grown from a smaller ICO to becoming one of the biggest known names in the whole world. So Polygon is really making me as an Indian very proud. So this is the potential of being an early investor in an ICO. But of course, as I said, the risk reward ratio is very high, and probably only in 1 in 10 ICOs succeed in doing whatever they want to do.
Hmm. What do you think about like positive and negatives being investing in an ICO at the time of that launching? So what are the things?
So the positive aspect of being an ICO from an in the investor perspective is that you get to invest in a project very early. So basically, as a retail investor, you don't have access to invest in companies like Ola or Uber before they are actually listed on the market, because you don't have that much capital to invest. And the ticket size or the amount, that the minimum amount that you have to invest is probably say $500,000 or $100,000. So this is the amount which is very huge for normal people. So the positive side of ICO is you get to invest in a project which you feel can really be a market changer, and you get to invest at the same price or at a very similar price that all other investors are investing in. But the negative side is most retail investors, including you and me and other people in the crypto market, they are not seasoned investors. So they really don't know how to choose a market winner. So they go after, say, the marketing craze or advertisements or promotions or PR, and they get swayed. And this is where a lot of people fall for bad projects which are just scams or which doesn't have the potential to be market winners, or they don't even have a product, to be honest. So these are the things which I feel is a positive and negative of investing in the crypto field. So since I said I have already been in this field for like 5 years now, close to 5 years now, I have been part of many ICOs as an investor and also as an advisor in various capacity.
Right. It was quite good points, I think. So, like if we talk about the marketing side of an ICO, so I still get to get a lot of messages on Instagram and normal ads on Google and YouTube about this token launch, this token launch. So at this type of environments, like how to analyze the coins and prevent being scammed, because you may get invested in a particular coin but you not get a good investment. So how to analyze?
Right. So let's say you want to invest in an ICO which you got an advertisement, and probably with an ICO you will get some link to go to their website and see what is the ICO about. So this is normally how people invite you or do advertisement. So what is the most important few things that you should keep in mind before investing are like, does that ICO has a white paper or light paper or some kind of documents which states what is the problem that they are trying to solve, what is the solution, what is the product that they are trying to build, what kind of token they are launching, is it a utility token which you can use in the product, or is it just a security token which is used just for investing in the ICO, and most importantly, what is the business, like how the tokens will be used or how the product will be self-sustaining. So these are the basic things which I think everybody looks into, right? Like any company you want to invest in, these are the things that you look into. But beyond this, you should go a bit further and check a few other things. Like for example, the team composition. So who are the people who is part of this project? What is the capability of the technical team? Who is the CEO? Who is the advisor? So all these things matters. The second thing is the token model. So for example, Dogecoin. So the Dogecoin token model is inflationary. So with time, the number of tokens will just keep on increasing. Whereas Bitcoin is finite and limited. So with time, it's a deflationary currency. So imagine you want to invest $100 today. Will you want to invest in something which is inflationary or deflationary? Of course, you would want to do it in a project which is deflationary, right?
Right.
That's a normal thing. So that's how you should see a tokenomics. Like if there's infinite number of tokens, then is there a token burn policy? If not, how they are managing the whole ecosystem. So that is very important. Then probably you should go and look in the business model, like what industry they are in. Suppose they are in the healthcare industry, or suppose they are in the finance industry, or suppose they are in the tourism industry. So right now, if you are given these three choices, which you think is the most important or most plausible to succeed? probably I will choose something which is in the healthcare industry or fintech industry, because I think for the next 3 to 5 years, because of Corona, the tourism industry will suffer. So these are the things you should keep in mind before investing. And finally, the last two things: one is what are their collaborations and partners, and where are they legally established, if they have a legal address or not. And after these things, you come to if they have a working product or not. So, right in the beginning, in 2017, when ICO craze was at the highest, so a lot of people raised a lot of money just with the white paper and some documents and some website. But right now, I don't think that works. So you should at least have a MVP, a minimum viable product, or a working product which people can use. Only then it makes your project viable. So these are the things which I would like to advise people to look into any project before they are investing in any ICOs or any kind of tokens.
Yeah, yeah, right. Just crypto space is based on blockchain technology. So if any project is not based on blockchain, or any firm that is already not working on a blockchain type of technology, so they can use this type of ICOs for their company or not?
Well, it's a tricky question. I think they can, but the whole point is crypto or tokens is the heartbeat of blockchain. So if you are having a blockchain based project, it's easy for you to use tokens so that people are incentivized to use your platform, and then you can grow and have network effect. But if you do not want to use blockchain, or if you don't want to use any kind of digital ledger technology in your product itself, but you just want to use tokens to raise funds. So there's something called STOs, which is security token offering. So basically, in security token offering, you are offering people tokens instead of equity. So this is exactly how equity market works, and you will be able to invest in that company using the tokens. So basically, the company promises that after a certain time, they are going to release fixed amount of tokens, and they will be released for the investors to invest in. So of course, the company can build an STO token just for the purpose of raising funds. So that's a total possibility, yes.
All right, all right. All right, all right. So now if company wants to raise some funds or launch an ICO, so what's the process of evaluation and deciding the number of coins should be in the market and launching proper launching? So what is the whole process of that?
I think there are various processes involved about before launching a coin. The first thing I would say is having a problem statement. So if suppose the company is already working in a space which they have clearly defined a problem statement, and they have a solution to that problem, then they can think of the next step of launching an ICO. And then, of course, launching an ICO is not something which is easy right now. So there are various steps and various expenses involved. So on an average, before you want to start an ICO, you would probably need roughly between say 150,000 to 200,000 US dollars if you want to do it in a proper manner. And why the amount is needed, I'll give you a breakdown. So after the problem statement and everything is defined, you need to create a company, and the company should be in a jurisdiction where ICO or fundraising is allowed. Maybe it can be Estonia, or it can be Singapore, it can be any jurisdiction. So you need lawyers for you to file those papers, for you to have to create a company. So that will take maybe $5,000 to $10,000.
All right.
Yeah. After that, you need to create a team. So of course you have your own core team which is doing the development or which is building the project, but then you need people say in business development, in marketing, in PR, for advisory roles, or for blockchain consulting. So there are various things which are needed to make a project complete. So you need to hire these people so that you can have credibility. Only technical people will not be able to launch a very good coin. The second thing is this is the second thing. The third thing is you have to spend money on promotions, on marketing, on white paper development, on website development, on app development. So these are all the things which you have to spend in, and it will cost you anything between say $50,000 to $80,000. So now after spending $100,000 from your own pocket, you are finally ready to do an ICO. So at this point, you have an option of doing an ICO directly from your website. So what does that mean? So you have done marketing, and there are a lot of people who want to invest in your tokens. But these people, they're not sure if you want to list your tokens in an exchange or not. So then you have to have an exchange partnership. Say you want to have a partnership with a tier 1 exchange like Binance. So most of the time, Binance has only one or two projects which are invited. Otherwise, if you have to go and list your tokens on Binance, you have to pay them anywhere between 300,000 to 500,000 US dollars. But then that's not something which everybody does at the first time. So they go for some smaller exchanges like say CoinDCX or WazirX, or international exchanges like Whitebit or Emirex. So all these will cost you some amount of money as well. And what does this exchange do is basically guarantee the users that, hey, if you invest in this project, you have an exchange which allows you to trade or sell when the project is listed. So this is called IEO, or initial exchange offering, wherein you sell your tokens through an exchange. So these are all the processes for launching an ICO. But then you also have to figure out ways wherein once you raise the money, how will you use the money? So you want to keep it in the crypto form, you have to you can sell it, or you can keep it in USDT. So this is called treasury management. So these kind of treasury management, there are specialized companies which help you do and plan for it for the next 2-3 years before your ICO can develop on its own.
Now this topic has always been a discussion among many people. Do we really need centralized or decentralization? And also we want regulations. So what I think, that if we get some regulations or regulated something, then decentralization is of nothing. So do we really need regulations or not? And if we need, then till what extent we actually need it, or there should be some limitations. So what do you think about that?
Right. So I feel regulations are important because a lot of time crypto gets a bad name that bad money or tainted money is being moved using crypto. But I don't feel that amounts to a lot. So why I feel that is, currently almost all the exchanges, Binance, XREX, WazirX, Whitebit, all these exchanges are partnering with crypto AML companies, which is anti-money laundering companies. So these companies are like Chain Analysis, CipherTrace, TRM Labs. So all these companies help crypto companies and exchanges to see where the money is coming from and where the money is going out. So XREX, the company which I currently work in, has now one of the first and most advanced search engines and also its own AML policy, wherein we do not allow people to deposit crypto without any KYC. And it's kind of a dilemma for us, why we should do it, why we shouldn't be like Binance or any other crypto companies. Well, for us, it's very clear. We want people to start investing in a company which does everything by the books and which is very regulated. And well, some people might not like regulation. Crypto is something which people feel that should be decentralized and should not be regulated. For them, there are many DeFi projects, many DEXs or decentralized exchanges wherein they can just go and invest their tokens in, or invest in any token they want to do. For us, we prefer to be regulated and we prefer to do everything by the books. So as I said to you before, crypto is going to be divided into very distinct branches. One is the regulated exchanges and regulated crypto companies, and the other is DeFi projects. But sooner or later, for DeFi projects to grow and get more funds in, they also have to have some way of doing KYC or knowing your customers, or KYB, knowing your business, so that crypto investors or crypto hedge funds uh, can invest in DeFi's as well. So this is how the whole scenario is panning out. So 5 years back, when I was just new to the industry, people were saying crypto is like gambling, crypto is uh, like a bubble. But right now, people are telling crypto is a very risky asset. So from being a bubble, from being a gambling vehicle, it has come to being recognized as an asset class. And I feel if given a chance and if people have a long term view of investing in crypto, it's one of the most rewarding asset classes. And every 4 or 5 years, because of the Bitcoin halving phenomenon, the price of Bitcoin will double or triple. So 5 years down the line, if you invest $100 in Bitcoin, it's going to be at least $300, no questions asked. So even if people don't understand a whole lot of different coins, they can just start with investing in the top two, Bitcoin and Ethereum. That's it.
Right. Actually, I also think that because this type of instability in this Bitcoin is just because it has been started being adopted by different people, and people are getting used to it. This time is to adapt to it. So I think this is the main problem due that is getting that much unstable. And there are a lot of sources on the internet regarding the different type of knowledge. So what are the reliable sources you think that people should really go to? And like, yes.
So I feel, yeah, as you said, Bitcoin is getting accepted in a lot of different institutions, businesses, and as a risky asset class. But not only that, it's going to get accepted in a lot of countries as well. So, for example, recently El Salvador started accepting Bitcoin as a payment method. In Japan, XRP or Ripple is already classified as a payment method. In countries like Romania, Bulgaria, so Eastern European countries, so they hold Bitcoin as part of their treasury. Like for example, in India, Reserve Bank of India holds US dollars as part of their treasury. In those countries, they hold Bitcoin as part of their treasury. So a lot of information like this can be obtained from various sites. So one of them is, I would say, Cointelegraph. So it's a news media channel wherein you get a lot of news about different industry, different organization, different businesses adapting crypto and blockchain. Then if you want to know more about coins and tokens, you can go to a website called CoinMarketCap, wherein you see all the different coins that are there listed in various exchanges. What is the market cap? What is the what do you call it? What is the website link? And all these things, all these information are there in the CoinMarketCap. And then if you want to study or know more about the blockchain and crypto and Bitcoin, you can go to a website called Coin Intelligence. So in Coin Intelligence, you have basically hour-long videos where you can sit and get the right knowledge about Bitcoin. And then, of course, you can follow some great people who are there giving great knowledge about Bitcoin. And this is how you get the knowledge. And of course, everything cannot be fed to you. So once you have the knowledge, you have to digest the knowledge and then search for the answers that you are looking into and get a very brief idea about what is the technology all about and how people are using this kind of tech. So I think the three main websites I would suggest is Cointelegraph for the media and news, CoinMarketCap for knowing all the different coins and tokens and all the things that are related with the tokens, including the number of tokens, the value, which are the exchanges they are listed in, and finally Coin Intelligence, which is a free to use website wherein you can just go and study more about the crypto and blockchain and Bitcoin.
Right, right. So like other than this, I also prefer sometimes Twitter for it. So if you some follow some really good people on Twitter, so they will also be great. For I think.
Yes. So in Twitter, there are many people whom you can follow, and like you can follow CZ, who is the owner of Binance. You can follow Sumit Gupta, the owner of CoinDCX. You can follow the owner of WazirX, Nischal. So there are many people in the crypto space you can follow in Twitter, and you can get some knowledge about what is exactly happening on a like first hand basis.
I think this was a great podcast and nice to talk to you. This time we are winding the podcast, and everything will be great. And this Bitcoin will go far up, I think, and all the crypto and blockchain will be adopted in India also.
Yeah, of course. In India, there are many such projects which are going on. Recently, the India Stack is also trying to implement Bitcoin. I know I'm from West Bengal, India, so there is a place called Dugapur in West Bengal where they were doing birth certificate and death certificate linked to blockchain. So there are a lot of blockchain-based projects going on in Telangana as well. So the future is very good for Bitcoin, and I hope that uh, blockchain is get more implemented in the Indian subcontinent, and the Indian government takes a proper regulation and views on this new asset class.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ishan, for your time. I really had a good time explaining all these things. It's really nice to share your knowledge. The more you teach, the more you tell, you get to know more about what is happening, and it gives a very big joy to me to be able to do this with you today.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Bye bye.